Ooh, it's smoky.
Before we get started with the video, we're getting dangerously close to 2,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, please hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you hadn't already. Texas gets a lot of praise for burnt ends, but really and truly they used to throw them away. It wasn't until Kansas City started doing burnt ends and they'd sauce it that Texans started doing this. All this actually came about around the 70s and 80s, as far as I know, as far as I can trace it back. But burnt ends are nothing more than the pieces of the brisket that have been cut up into little bite-sized pieces and then sauced. Still in Texas, many barbecue places will give burnt ends away as like little appetizers or something other. But what if you can't get brisket? Because brisket is really a Texas thing. And admittedly, Kansas City stole that from the Texans. They just took something that Texans threw away and made it theirs. And then the Texans decided to try to take it back. But what if you don't have that? Let's say you don't have a culture where brisket is king, like Florida. Lately, a lot of TikTokers and Instagrammers and everybody else has been doing their variation of burnt ends with hot dogs. I don't like that. Growing up in the South, it didn't matter if you was being born, you was getting married, you were dying, you had died, whatever the reason in the South, we're going to feed you. And we're always going to hold a big community deal, and there's always going to be food. And then there's these little bitty cocktail sausages. They'll be in some type of sauce and cooked. And that's one of the things you'll always find. It's ubiquitous. So I said, you know what? Why don't we take those little smokies, that's what we call them, and let's see if we can make some poor man's burnt ends using the trendy TikToker hot dog burnt ends. So that's what this is all about. Stay tuned. Alrighty, so what we have here is 12 ounces, or roughly about 347 grams of cocktail smoked sausages. And we're going to do this kind of like burnt ends, or poor man burnt ends. First step is toss in some mustard. This is just yellow Ballpark mustard. So I'd say this is about a teaspoon or so. There's really no measurement or anything. You just want to make sure it's got a good coating of mustard. You're not actually going to taste the mustard that much. It's just meant to adhere the seasonings onto it. The other thing is, this right here is already pre-cooked, so you don't have to worry about them getting to temp. You want them cooked all the way through, of course, but I mean, you don't have to worry about it like you would raw meat. Alright, so with that there, next thing we're going to do is add some salt. Not much, just a little bit of salt. Okay, we'll stir that. Alright, now we're going to add some peppercorn medley grinder. Okay, that's probably about a tablespoon of pepper to about a teaspoon of salt, half teaspoon salt. You don't want to put a lot of salt on these, they're already kind of salty. So it's mostly black pepper is what you're trying to get on here to kind of get that bark-like flavor. And the final element is granulated garlic. I'm just going to put some of that on there. I'd probably say about maybe a half tablespoon, if that. Stir this up and put on a smoker. Never fails, I get out here recording, somebody's always making a racket. But anyway, what I did is I just took some aluminum foil, made me a tray, and then I poked some holes in the bottom. And so we're going to now put the cocktail sausages in here so they can get to smoking. Okay, so there's the smokies, and if you hadn't seen the turkey video, you need to see that. Alrighty, so these are looking good. So we're going to keep them going and try to get the smoke to them, build up that bark. And of course now that all the neighbors have stopped weed eating at 8 o'clock, now cicadas are kicking in. God, love it. Well, the little smokies are getting there. They're getting a good load of smoke on them, but I want to get that burnt in look to them. Ooh, it's smoky. And there's our little sausages right there. Doing so good. I'm going to go ahead and take these off. They're already cooked. There's been some crispy little pieces, but part of that's where it's just getting too hot. Now what we're going to do is treat them like burn-ins. So we're going to take them inside. I'm going to let these cool off. And then probably tomorrow, next day, we'll take them and treat them like burn-ins and do the rest of the procedure. Alright, in a large skillet, I've got some oil and butter melting together so I can toast some buns. Because this is a poor man's burnt ends, we're going to be using hamburger buns. Just regular old hamburger buns. Or not hamburger, hot dog. There we go with that. Just toasting the other side, and then we'll put these in the oven to stay warm as we use the same skillet to make our barbecue sauce and sauce up our burnt ends. I'm going to start with the juice and zest of half an orange. This is a Naval orange. Now, the orange is totally optional, but this part isn't. It's 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. This right here is 4 tablespoons of ketchup. 2 tablespoons of water. A teaspoon of granulated onion. Or you can use onion powder if you wish. It's a lot easier to find onion powder. Now 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Were I to be doing this as a regular barbecue sauce and not a sauce for the burnt ends, I would have added salt and pepper and garlic as well, but that is already in the burnt ends. And also I would have added just a little bit of mustard, but that's already in the burnt ends, so we're going to omit that. But it would have been roughly about 1/4 teaspoon each salt, pepper, and garlic and mustard, where I do in a traditional barbecue sauce. Now, as for the orange, that you can omit that. As for the cayenne pepper, you can also omit that. That's just something that I like to do. That's why I call my Florida sauce. The pepper and the citrus really gives it a little bit of flavor. If you wanted to change it up, you could put any type of berry in here. Now the zest does more than the juice, so you could put like maybe a jam or jelly in here. Apple's not too strong, but you could probably do strawberry. Blueberry's pretty good. Huckleberry is awesome. So you can do a bunch of different things. I wouldn't do anything like any type of pineapple or something like that, or papaya, because pineapple is got a meat tenderizing compound in it, and papaya has a meat tenderizing compound in it. Now I've tossed in my cocktail sausages, aka my poor man's burnt ends, into the sauce, and now I'm letting it just cook down. It'll cook for about 5 minutes and then we're done. Nothing like a little french fries go with your sandwich. I know this may sound like heresy, but I'm going to finish this off with a tablespoon of butter. I'm just going to melt it in and then serve it nice and hot. For my wife, any barbecue sandwich starts off with just a regular American cheese singles. This 1.5 slices. And then we'll put some dill pickles on here for her. Alright, now we got 4 pickles. Generous spoonful of our poor man's burnt ends finishes it off, and then we add the fries. Alright, there you go. This is poor man burnt ends Tasha style. And here's mine, the poor working man style, no frills, no fuss, just simple, straight out, cheap American food. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. So let's talk about it. Texture wise, you're not fooling anybody. Taste wise, you're not fooling anybody. My wife said it reminds her of the McRib. Well, I've never had McRib. I don't do fast food, so I don't know what McRib tastes like. There is a history though, and it's gone back a long time. Back to medieval times, where rich kings would take food while their their servants and all their subjects were in dire poverty and trying to find food and couldn't. These kings would say, "Oh, take this food and make it taste like, or make it look like something else." During around the 1930s, a lot of people moved from the farms to the cities. And chicken was hard to get. You could get pork, but you couldn't get chicken. You could even get veal. Veal was very easy to get, but you couldn't get chicken. And so chicken became a very sought after meat. And during the war, you couldn't get chicken. So they would take and cobble pieces of meat together, pork, veal, whatever, and you had these little devices that looked like tongs in the shape of a chicken leg. And that's how you would make city chicken. And the city chicken basically it wasn't a meatloaf, it was just basically meat. So it was almost like a hamburger made out of pork or veal, or whatever you get. And then you squeezed it together, and then breaded it, and fried it, and it was supposed to mimic chicken. Alright, my wife brought up McRib. Pork ribs became very sought after during the 1980s and 90s. And so you couldn't get ribs at a very affordable price. Kind of like skirt steak is now. A lot of people in Miami used to eat skirt steak all the time. Now, skirt steak prices have went through the roof, even though it doesn't really warrant the prices. Same thing with chicken wings. Until the chicken wing craze from Buffalo, New York took place, chicken wings were what you threw away. They were garbage. Nobody wanted them. And then all of a sudden you can't get chicken wings. And when you do buy them, they're expensive. So there is a trend in America going back to our early Middle Ages roots of taking something to make it look like something else. And so my wife, she referred to these as McRibs. It lacks texture. It don't have the texture of a brisket. Some people will make fake burnt ends with chuck roast. That's acceptable, but if you price chuck roast lately, it's not that affordable. So it's really not a working man's option. That's the reason why the TikTokers have went to the hot dogs. And so I decided to go with Little Smokies. They're already pre-cooked. They taste better than a hot dog. They got a little bit better texture. You don't have to do near as much work as you do with a hot dog. You're not going to ever fool anybody. These fakes are not meant to fool somebody. They're supposed to be an alternative. And it's a neat way of getting some barbecue into your diet. I mean, it's fun. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope you liked it. Please comment down below. What would you use for a poor man's burnt ends? What would be your choice? I would love to hear that, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.